Let me throw a little softball curveball into here. So, got a message from a reporter that the Wall Street Journal is now reporting, Pat, on Salesforce is in some level of significant talks with a company called Slack to
Okay.
acquire Slack. And so I was asked for some commentary. And by the way, I predicted this possible acquisition in a number of different pieces I wrote earlier in the year, and some comments I'd given to Business Insider. And it looks like there's a possibility that this acquisition is going to come to fruition. Now, it's early days. Haven't even had a chance to really dig into it. But since we had an empty topic, Pat, and this just came in, it's like, holy wow, this is perfect. So, just a little bit of analysis on it. Slack was on a road to nowhere. I'm telling you, the company had a really great technology and has a very loyal fan base, and people that use Slack like Slack. But the problem is the ecosystem for collaboration had grown and scaled too well beyond the need for the connectivity and the tie-ins that make collab work. Can't be done in a bespoke manner necessarily. Zoom had the benefit of this, probably saw exponential growth as a byproduct of the pandemic, and may not have been able to grow at nearly the scale as sort of a being an appliance itself. But because of what happened in the pandemic, it benefited. Slack did not see that same benefit. It did not see that same growth and that adoption. The growth and adoption instead went to Microsoft Teams and to an extent to Cisco WebEx and companies that basically had that full end-to-end stack. Well, Salesforce has flirted in the collaboration space. They've had what's called like Salesforce Chatter, the full platform. It's an ecosystem. Companies use Salesforce as sort of the central repository for a lot of their day-to-day activities. And so with Salesforce and with the weight of Salesforce, and like I said, I love to, be a little critical at times of Salesforce, but this could give a kind of a revival to a company like Slack because you have the benefit of the whole Salesforce user ecosystem. So again, it's early days and it's early moments, but for a company like Slack, I think growth was going to get harder and harder. Profitability was further and further out of reach for the company. The street had grown increasingly impatient. The stock was really not even a discussion point. People weren't excited about it anymore. And this could be a revival moment. And there's a lot of users. And by the way, for Salesforce, which has desperately been trying to enter this space and just been relatively unsuccessful through its own efforts, this could jettison it to relevance in collaboration in a pretty quick fashion, Pat. So it's really interesting. It's going to be a story to watch and probably something that we will talk about more on the show as this story develops.
Yeah, what I'll add is really come from a competitive point of view. If you look at Slack and what it offers, typically when a startup comes in to a market, it needs to be 10x better than the entrenched vendors. And for a short period of time, I think that was the case. But the ferocity that Microsoft, Google, and Cisco came in with their offerings was head spinning. In fact, Microsoft beat Slack in terms of every major security consideration, and for me, it was not game over because that's just too dramatic. Slack still does add some incremental value add, but man, it is definitely not the 10x I think it needed to make it happen. Where there's a case that I could make for Zoom before all the others caught up, just how easy it was. Now, it was a security and privacy nightmare, right? When they had their hockey stick growth, but man, it was easy, pretty good quality, really good quality on the whole. And for most users, it was free. So contrast in terms, and from a Salesforce point of view, they've been dabbling in this end user computing stuff, but this is where, if this happens, I would actually say, oh my gosh, it got serious. Now they're going to start going after Google and Microsoft for the personal computing space, and to me, trying to offer what Microsoft and Google are already offering, which is an end-to-end development platform that links into data, low code, no code, and a boatload of code type of tools. Actually, Salesforce doesn't have that. yet, but still trying to connect the entire customer experience and employee experience front to back. Interesting stuff, Daniel.